Hey everybody, Dr. Chris Dost here. Welcome back to my channel, Biblical Languages and Literature. In this video, we are going to be talking more about third masculine singular suffix conjugation verbs in the G stem in Biblical Aramaic. So if you're looking for some practice on not only analyzing verbs, but reading them in context, then this is the video for you. Before we get started, please be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. In fact, most of my viewers aren't actually subscribers, so that would really help if you could do that. Make sure you ring the bell to be notified when I publish videos in the future. For this video, I'd like to get 100 likes, so please click the like button, and I really appreciate your support in helping me to hit that goal. If you're interested in watching the unabridged video, please check out my Patreon channel. The link is in the description down below. All right, let's get started. In this video, we're going to continue our discussion of third masculine singular suffix conjugation verbs in the G stem in Biblical Aramaic. So let's go to Daniel 2:10 again. We looked at a few forms in Daniel 2:10 last time. So Daniel 2:10 is a longer verse, so we're going to need to scroll down a little bit. And we're just going to look at the second half of the verse, so right after the atnach here. Kol kavel di kol melech rav v'shalit milah chidna lash'el. L'chol chartom v'ashaf v'chastai. So kol kavel di means because or for. Kol melech, any king. Rav v'shalit, great and powerful. So any great and powerful king. Milah chidna, a word such as this, a matter or a thing such as this. La she'el, he has not asked. La meaning not, and she'el is a third masculine singular G stem suffix conjugation of the root shin, aleph, lamed. And so this is a middle aleph verb. Now that doesn't affect the vocalization, but it's a middle guttural verb, and so we'll just point it out, even though it doesn't really change anything. It's got an I-class vowel, and we've seen that in Biblical Aramaic, some of these forms will have an A-class vowel, kind of like we saw yesterday in 2:12 with benas, kitzaf, and amar. He became angry and furious, and va'amar means he said. But some of these forms will have an I-class theme vowel, and we have an instance of that today with the form she'el. One example that we saw yesterday was sgid. He paid homage. So, ule Daniel sgid. He paid homage to Daniel. We also saw an example in Daniel 3:26 where we have Beidain Krev Nebuchadnezzar Litra Atun Nura Yakidta. Then Nebuchadnezzar drew near. Krev has an I-class E-type theme vowel. Beidain Krev Nebuchadnezzar. Then Nebuchadnezzar drew near. Litra Atun Nura Yakidta, to the door of the burning fiery furnace. So in Daniel 2:10 then, she'el, there's really nothing unexpected. The middle aleph doesn't change anything in this particular form of the verb. In Daniel 6:15, we see another middle aleph verb, and that form is be'esh. So reading from the beginning of 6:15, it says, Adain malka kedi milta shma sagi be'esh aloi. So then the king, Adain malka, kedi, when, milta, the matter, Shma, he heard, so when he heard the matter. So then the king, when he heard the matter, Adain malka k'di milta shma, and we'll just point out for now that shma is a third masculine singular G-stem suffix conjugation with a final ayin, final guttural, and it looks like our strong verbs, so there's no differentiation here. But then we come to sagi be'esh aloi. So sagi means greatly, be'esh, it became distressful concerning him, which we can translate to, he became exceedingly distressed. The Septuagint here has elupithi, which means he was grieved. But the Hebrew expression, as Muraoka puts it, is more impersonal. It became greatly distressful for him, concerning him. But all that to say, there's no change with be'esh because of the internal aleph. Let's look at some first aleph verbs now. So the first one in the book of Daniel is in Daniel 2:12. We looked at this verse yesterday, and we read, Kol kavel dana malka benas uktsaf sagi. So because of this, the king became angry and exceedingly furious. Va'amar lehovada lechol chakimei vavel. And he said. So what's going on here is we have the expected A-class theme vowel, the patach, underneath the mem. The expected schwa, though, in the first syllable of the verb is a compound schwa. And this is typical for a first guttural verb. We're going to see this with first aleph verbs, for instance, as well as some other similar verbal roots, where the schwa will become a compound A-type schwa. And then as a result, the vocalization of vav is with a patach. But all of this is to be expected. This is very routine here. But we do see evidence that a first aleph verb will experience some change in the vocalization. So, and he said, lehovada, to unalive, so we don't get demonetized, lechol chakimei Vavel, all of the sages of Babylon. In Daniel 2:17, we get the form azal, which means he went. So reading from the beginning, we get Adayin Daniel levaite azal. Then Daniel, Adayin Daniel, levaite, to the house of him, to his house, azal, he went. First aleph verb, and we have the expected change here, where the schwa becomes a compound schwa of an A type. Very typical for first aleph verbs. We see azal and amar in Daniel 2:24, which begins, Kol kavel dana, therefore, because of this, Daniel al arioch, Daniel went into Arioch, dimani malka, whom he appointed the king, whom the king appointed, lehovada lechakimei Vavel, to dispatch, to unalive, the sages of Babylon, the wise men of Babylon. Azal v'chen amar le, he went, and thus he said to him. Azal, he went, v'chein, and thus, and so, amar, he said, le, to him. We see v'chein amar le in Daniel 2:25 as well. And thus he said to him. Now in Daniel 3:1, we have a first ayin verb in the form avad, which means he made. Nebuchadnezzar malka, avad tzelem didhav. Nebuchadnezzar the king, or King Nebuchadnezzar, avad, third masculine singular, suffix conjugation G stem of the root ayin beit dalet, he made. King Nebuchadnezzar made tzleim, an image, didhav, of gold, an image of gold. And so the first ayin verb behaves just like the first aleph verb in this respect. Now in Daniel 3:32, we can see the difference between the first guttural verb and the strong root. There we get ataya v'timhaya, the signs and the wonders, ataya v'timhaya, di avad imi, literally, which he did with me, ilaha ilaha, we're reading with the kare there, the Most High God. So the signs and wonders that, who did? The Most High God did with me, if you want to be hyper-literal, shvar kodamai, it was pleasing before me, the hachvaya, to show. It was pleasing before me to show, or it has seemed good to me to show. And so avad is the first guttural verb. It has the compound schwa. Shafar does not. It has a strong first letter, and therefore it just gets a simple schwa in the first syllable. Okay, so next I want to look at final hey, final aleph verbs. And this is an area where biblical Aramaic and biblical Hebrew are going to differ a little bit. In Hebrew, we really don't get final aleph verbs too frequently, and when we do, the aleph is part of the root. In biblical Aramaic, however, because hey and aleph are often interchangeable as vowel letters, we're going to see verbs ending with quiescent hey and aleph, but the final aleph verbs are really final yud verbs in most cases. So the form be'ah, which here appears as uve'ah in Daniel 2:16, is a great example of this. It's listed in the lexicon as a final hey / final aleph verb, but historically it tells us that the root is actually final yud. So let's read this verse in Aramaic and then we'll analyze it. V'Daniel al uve'ah min malka, dizman yinten le, ufishra lehachvaya malka. So, and Daniel went in, so the verb al, we're going to come back to this later. This is actually a geminate root. We'll come back to it in a little bit. And so Daniel went in uve'ah, and requested. So the root is beit ayin hey, or you could say beit ayin aleph, or if you want to be historically correct, beit ayin yud. And he requested. Now we notice that with this form, it has the schwa under the first root consonant, as to be expected. But because there is a quiescent hey at the end, it's really just a vowel marker when you get right down to it. We have compensatory lengthening. And so the patach lengthens to kamatz. The short A vowel lengthens to the long A vowel. And so that's one of the differences between, say, a form like azal. Before, you can see that down at the bottom of the screen on the left in Daniel 2:17, where patach is there in the closed syllable. Here we have an open syllable ending the form uve'ah, for which reason the vowel is long and we get kamatz as opposed to patach. So now Daniel went in and requested min malka from the king, dizman yinten le, that time would be given. Yinten is functioning subjunctively. That time would be given to him, ufishra, so that, here u functions as so that the interpretation, lehachvaya, to show to the king, we would translate that as so that he may show the interpretation to the king. A wooden translation doesn't exactly work here, but you get the idea. Now we get the same verb in Daniel 2:49, but here instead of having a final hey, we get a final aleph. V'Daniel be'a min malka, and Daniel sought from the king. V'Daniel be'a min malka.